Welcome back to We Know Scripted TV, where today we know Yellowjackets Season 3, Episode 10, the season finale. We've come full circle. My name is Grace, but of course I'm not alone. I'm here with Jess Sterling. Jess, how you doing?
I'm so excited, Grace. This season was so good, and they nailed the ending. I cannot wait to talk about it.
It's too bad there's not that much to talk about. Not that much happened in the finale, so we figured to make sure we have enough to talk about. We've invited a very special guest. I'm very excited. A friend of ours, Jesse Camacho, is here. Jesse, how you doing?
I am great. I mean, a bit bipolar. On one hand, I'm living on the edge with Natalie, but I'm also down in the pit with Mari. So it's like, what a crazy range of emotions, but just so happy to be here. Been a fan of you guys and the podcast for years and years and years, and just really flattered you had me on. So thank you so much. Can't wait to dig into this.
Yeah, you go way. You're a longtime listener of RHAP and PSR days. So
yeah, you can actually see I've actually got a Wigglers Wombat hat and a post-show recap hat hanging up there. So been a long time coming, and just again, this feels like an out-of-body experience. Like being like, am I listening to the podcast right now, or am I actually here with you both? So this is really, really exciting.
You are an actor yourself. You've been on many things that I think people would be aware of that you've been on. Let's see. I feel like I most got to see you in Lock and Key, which I very much enjoyed. You were in Lock and Key. You were in Scream 6. You're in Scream 6, is that right?
Yeah, with Thaisa herself, Jasmine Savoy Brown.
Right.
Don't blink, you'll miss me, but I am in that movie. I do pop in there during the party scene, and I got to work with all those like really incredible up and coming people. And yeah, Lock and Key, which was just an amazing gig for me during the pandemic, and where I became like very, very close friends with Kevin Alves, who plays Travis on Yellowjackets. So my relationship with Yellowjackets stems from before the pilot was even really kind of reshot, because they shot a pilot and then they added Travis in later. And so, yeah, it's like through this like crazy industry, I've developed these friendships that have led to these shows that I love. But yes, Lock and Key and Scream 6. And currently I am on a show in Canada called The Trades. It's only available if you have Crave, which is in Canada, which is a drag. But yeah, just really fortunate that I've been able to sort of carve out a living in this industry.
Am I remembering correct? Is Kevin's character's name on Lock and Key? Isn't it Javi?
It is Javi. Yes.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah,
joked about this
all
before.
Connected.
Yeah, and let's just say his character on Lock and Key met a similar fate. So you know, not to spoil that show, but it's been long enough.
Yeah. If you don't watch Lock and Key, it's good. It's fun. It's worth checking out.
Yeah, super fun. Check it out.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate you being here. We're gonna chat about the whole season. Well, Jess, where should we? I mean, it's. I really do think I think that they really did it. I think that there's been so much commentary. And if you're sick to death of us talking about it, I feel you, but there's been so much good TV on at the moment that there is a gluttony of things you could be watching that are all, I would not blame anybody for being like, these are the 3 shows that I watch each week. And I'm like, can't keep up with the rest. Like, that's totally fine. If you have not been doing Yellowjackets, which is probably not the people who are listening here, but people have been missing out. This season, I feel like delivered a lot. I feel like this was, we were chatting a little bit before we started about, we don't know. And this could be happening as we're sort of, immediately afterwards, but we don't know anything about renewals at the moment. We don't know that. But it does feel like, I think, even if that is a reaction, putting so many answers in these episodes, even if that's a reaction to never knowing if you're going to get more, I just appreciate it from a storytelling thing of this is a show that I think the big thing we worry about just with mystery box shows is they're going to ask questions and then we don't get the answers to them. And this is like, don't worry, we got you.
Certainly. I think the big concern that a lot of us had maybe around season 2, I'd say, is knowing the creators having a 5-season plan for the show and being concerned with the pacing. We know exactly how much time these Yellowjackets spent out in the wilderness. So then working backwards and making sure they're giving us enough information across a potential 5 seasons. That's always something that's a little bit concerning with a mystery box show. But truly, I felt like this season they never took their foot off the gas pedal. In my opinion,
they couldn't. The brakes were cut.
Exactly.
Yes, poor Shauna's brakes were not cut, actually, it seems. But it does feel like they have been just writing whatever they want and not worrying about like getting a season 4. They're not looking back, they're only looking forward. And the amount of answers we got in this finale alone, not even just the whole season, but this finale is absolutely phenomenal. And Jesse, I think one of the biggest questions out there, I mean, not 3 things now that I'm thinking about. Like my brain is exploding. There's too many things to talk about, but probably number 1 headline I would say is Mari is indeed Pit Girl, as so many people have theorized.
Brutal. And they really did a great job this season of throwing us the Hannah curveball. I fell
She
for
got
it.
that dark hair, Jesse. She has
She's
that
got
dark
that dark
hair.
hair. And even like to the point where like throughout this episode too, I kept waiting. I was like, Mari's about to go Rambo. We're going to get a switch. We did get a switch later, but not the one I was expecting. I was like, the body's going to be in the pit. And then all of a sudden, like Mari's going to emerge from the bushes in someone else's clothing. And we're going to see it was Hannah down there. But yeah, that's the thing I love about these writers is they kind of write like there's no tomorrow, like you said. And so, you know, if there's a season 4, there's still plenty of meat on this, you know, on this bone, as we can tell by the leftovers of Mari. But, you know, if they don't, there's sort of enough there to pack it in. They better not. I will lose my shit if they cancel this show. But yeah, I just really appreciate it. Especially, I thought the whole season was great, but episode 6 onwards, it felt like they like put their foot through like, you know, the bottom of the car. They just sped right ahead, and it was a real joy to watch.
They're Flintstoning it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think speaking of sort of the Hannah misdirect, I think that that's a little bit of a theme, and it's a trick that we should be very wary of going into next season in terms of, I think this is a thing that the showrunners did an excellent job of, because it is a thing that I thought it was just an excellent technique of being like, it's basically like magic misdirect, you know, it's like, it's the sleight of hand of being like, you know, we're going to kind of leave this thing lingering long enough that you're going to think, oh, it's probably not the thing I thought it was at first. Like we're eliminating the red herring in the murder mystery movie, only then for them to be like, just kidding, it's actually this thing you thought all along, which I think really works because I think what probably the writers were a little bit worried about, and this is a thing about a mystery box show, is you don't want the immediate thing to feel too obvious, but then oftentimes there's this like, you then try to divert and you end up giving us an answer that like doesn't quite feel as good. Like a lot of the times that we're like, oh, I think Hilary Swank is going to be Melissa, is because it makes a lot of sense. Like we're invested in Melissa. We want to see an adult version of Melissa. Let Hilary Swank be Melissa. And then it got left so long that we were like, well, I guess probably now she's not Melissa. And I guess she's going to be this other character. And then no, it turns out she is Melissa. And I feel like they did the exact same thing with Mari and the Pit Girl of it all. I think Shauna as Antler Queen has felt a little bit like, you're like, it's been a really long time. Is it really just going to be, it's probably not going to be Shauna now. And then when it is Shauna, you're like, okay, I'm really glad because I feel like I kind of got the surprise element and I got to play along and figure out the mystery of the show thing, Jess.
Yeah, sorry, you might have to be more clear, Grace, because there are now 2 Jesses on the podcast and it might get confusing.
I think I'm going to say Jess and Jesse. Is that okay?
I got it.
Wonderful.
Is that great? Okay, good.
no,
Jessica
totally
Sterling,
agree.
if you could answer the question.
Mm-hmm. I will not. No, I totally agree. I think this is one of those satisfying answers because even if people had guessed it along the way, just because it's right doesn't mean that it's bad that you guessed it. It means that it was seeded enough in the past for it to make sense when it happened. I like that. We know Pit Girl has long dark hair. We know Pit Girl is wearing the nightgown, the Laura Lee nightgown. Mari is wearing it, but underneath some other clothes, right? Like, so I think the way they did it was really well done. Having Hannah in there and having Hannah be a fake out different character, but for some completely different storyline. It's perfect the way they did it. And on top of that, Jesse, the times like all season long, not even just this season, other seasons, Shauna and Mari constantly, right? Like battling. Mari and kind of everyone battling. So to have it be the result of Shauna changing the order of who draws the cards because she thinks that Van and Ty have stacked the deck and it resulting in Mari's death, like it's delicious.
It's fantastic. And you know, like I mean, Sophie Noyes and Melanie Linsky are incredible, but there are times where Shauna just sucks. Where you're just like, Shauna's like so hateable, but it's delicious. It's fantastic. Like and what I kind of liked was, and I guess we'll get into the intricacies of it now, is there was almost, if you think about it, because there was this, it seemed to be two dual plans kind of happening during this hunt. There was some kind of like assassinate Shauna plan. Meanwhile, there was this, Natalie escape plan. It almost kind of spun and Mari into this kind of like forced into this kind of heroic distraction role, because we do see her in kind of, I know I'm jumping all over the place here, but we do kind of see Mari in the background of that planning scene with Aquila where they're talking about creating this diversion. And yeah, they expected it to be Hannah, and Shauna being so sharp kind of diverts them. But I liked kind of taking this, what we thought was this like kind of helpless victim running away, and almost adding this element of like, no, this was kind of part of a grander scheme to get them out of this. And I thought that was a really clever way to sort of subvert our expectations. And it's been such a great season for Mari. As I said, Alexa's a personal friend of mine, and I know how great an actress she is. And on this show, there's a lot of mouths to feed. It's one of the most exciting casts, I think, on television. And so, yeah, I really loved, I loved her stuff with Coach at the beginning. I thought we got to see some really fun stuff there. And, seeing this as her kind of big going out with a bang episode, I thought it was so effective. And yeah, even seeing her slowly turn into Pit Girl, the transformation as she's running, I still was like, no, really? Are we actually doing this? And like you said, I love a show that works towards an answer that they clearly have had for a long time. And they give it to you, but they give it to you after you've started to go, wait, that can't be it now.
Yeah.
I just think it's very clever writing.
Which is, I think, a testament to the show, because I think like if you had a murder mystery where like you're watching some Agatha Christie thing and you're like, it's probably not going to be like the jerk boyfriend, right? Like he's too obvious to have done it. And by the end of it, they do it. You'd be like, that's boring. Like, I think it's a real credit to the show that actually they can write these characters so well. And for the storylines to be interesting. And actually it's a really interesting thing you say is there's two plans, but there's actually like in the whole hunt of it all, there's actually kind of like three things going on. There's actually the like what's happening with there is that stuff. There's the diversion plan and there's the kill Shauna plan. So there's like three different things that people are doing, and I think it's like an incredible testament to the show that it all sort of feels like it works and makes sense and on top of that is extremely fun to watch. I feel like we should just stick with maybe this whole
it all intertangles together, I think, at this point, right? Like the entirety of it is, we also find out Aquila has killed her own animals as she envisioned once upon a time in order to kind of prompt the hunt, right? So she killed her own animals to then have Lottie come in and be like, we need to make a sacrifice because those other people were outsiders. They weren't actual sacrifices. So we need to now make a sacrifice. We need to do a hunt. Now, of course, Shauna, bloodthirsty Shauna, is very much like, yes, sounds great. Let's do it. Then we have the plan of Van and Ty wanting to stack, well, mostly Ty wanting to stack the deck, but Van is the one who has to do it. Van is extremely distraught at having to basically choose who will die. They, of course, are going to choose Hannah, the one outsider in the group. Shauna steps in the middle of the drawing of the cards, which results in the order being off. Mari picks the queen. And during all of this, Nat and Misty have their own Nat, Misty, Van, I guess, kind of, sort of.
There's some wonkiness over who's involved in what a little bit, yes, but yeah.
Yeah. Go to fix the satellite phone with the antenna from the transponder. Nat has to bring it up to a high location for it to work. Hannah, of course, discovers her throughout this. And Grace, I'm really curious to know when Nat caught Hannah and was like, what do you want? Like, what are you doing here? And Hannah says, I want to help. Like, I don't want to be here. I've eaten human flesh. Please let me help you. Did you believe her?
Okay, here's what I think is like fascinating about this whole sequence of the hunt. And I actually think like, I actually talked about this on a movie ladder podcast a few weeks ago, where I was basically explaining how my brain is broken and how I can't be watching things without being like, and this is going to be the last scene, and that's going to be the scene that ties in the theme of the thing that's happening. Like I can't not be overthinking what's happening. And I felt myself so immersed in this. And the thing I think that like keeps happening on Yellowjackets is I'm like, oh, this is this is the this is it. This is the moment of the episode. And they often put that like 3/4 of the way through the episode, and then they do like 4 other things that you're like, oh, each of those things could have ended the episode, you know? I think that Jesse, the character complexities here, because every time Jess, you were like, like Akila does this thing, and Lottie, I'm like, you know, the like Lottie thinking it needs to be a real sacrifice. Well, they didn't even do a real sacrifice because they fake picked Mari getting the card, and then she did actually die, even though she was like the person who wasn't supposed to die. Jesse, she like
There's some
wasn't supposed to die,
4D
but then
chess
she.
going on.
It's wild. It's like the character stuff is so, I think, rich.
Yeah, I think the ghost of like of Javi's maybe living a little rent free in their heads. They could be like, we can do like a pick, we can rig it for Hannah, and you know, hopefully we get Shauna, and the wilderness will accept that, sort of like it accepted Javi. I mean, I think obviously they kind of were going to go into this going, if Hannah dies, she dies. Like that's fine, but the whole crux of this plan is to do this big bait and switch, and then you know, again, give her credit. Shauna reading the room perfectly kind of steps in and screws it up and throws everyone for a loop.
This is my important question, actually. I think
Yes.
I really actually want to hone it because I think Shauna and her, I think this has really been the Shauna season. I think that this has been by far like we get the most insight and sort of we are learning the most about Shauna. And I actually think it's like in some ways, you know, you talked earlier, like Shauna sucks. I do think it's the most Breaking Bad-y of anything, and it's not Breaking Bad, but it's like it's close in terms of like people. So we've been having this debate over the course of the season of wanting to be like, I think Shauna's the big bad, and people are like, no, wait, hold on, don't say that yet, because I don't know if I want to feel that way. It's like, but I think actually maybe she is. Can we talk about like why, in terms of the way in which the hunt works? You said this thing of Javi living in their head of like, it doesn't actually have to be the person who pulls that card who has to die. We have to chase that person, and the idea is like, that's what the wilderness wanted, so we'll kill that person. But if another person dies in the hunt, that is also the wilderness being like, something happened. Shauna, what do you read into Shauna inserting herself to make sure that it is not Hannah who does? And I feel like there was maybe 2 different things that I was reading between the 2 of you, Jess and Jesse, which is it Shauna trying to make sure that she doesn't pull the card, or she is trying to make sure that Hannah doesn't get the card, or is she trying to make sure Mari gets a card?
You see, maybe I read it wrong, but my opinion was she just wanted to keep it random almost. Like I feel like I guess she probably thought Hannah's the obvious target, so therefore it would be Mari. But I think for her it was like, this is not how it's supposed to go. It's got to be completely random. And you know, I think, who did she step in front of again? Was it she stepped in front of Mari, but it was after. Was it after Van?
Somebody else
Van,
picks
right?
after her, right? No, is that not right?
But either way, I think I
it's
think
an
I
assertion
agree
of
with you,
control,
Jesse,
Jess.
in that I think Shauna's intent is to maintain control.
Yeah.
Because if Van and Ty have on the side made a decision as to who is going to be the one to pick the Queen of Hearts, Shauna doesn't like that. She doesn't want them being able to decide who dies, right? If anyone gets to decide, it's her. But I don't think she knows, what beyond a shadow of a doubt at least, who Ty and Van have selected. But I don't think it's that difficult to guess that they have selected Hannah, the only outsider of their group, right? So like, I think her stepping in is basically her saying, I'm on to you. Like, I'm the one in charge, and you're not going to pull this off without me knowing about it. Because the entire episode in the 90s during the hunt is Shauna being extremely paranoid, and she's right. Like, she is absolutely right to be paranoid, because everyone else, almost every single other person at this point, has ulterior motives, has a different plan, a sub plan as to what's actually going on, right? Like, and the problem is, while she's too busy sniffing out one plan of the Van and Ty stack the deck plan, she completely misses the satellite phone plan. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting that Shauna is so spot on and she's so smart and knows that stuff is up. She can sniff, right? We see her doing like a bunk check, like this is prison in the beginning of the episode, because she's just so paranoid that these people are going to turn on her. Rightfully so, because she's completely lost it.
Yeah, and I think, there's this great theme that we see sometimes in shows and books of like the person that was sort of always the outsider,
Yeah.
the friend of the popular person, finally, and like Breaking Bad's a great example, and Walter White, a man who always felt looked over, and then they find themselves in this position where all of a sudden they're powerful and they have
Yeah.
status and people listen to them and they fear them. And I think that's like almost a drug to Shauna. And also, Hannah, I think, has done a great job of ingratiating herself and really seeming like Shauna's like almost bodyguard. Like at the beginning with that crossbow, she's like fully like drinking the Kool-Aid, or so she appears to. So I think it is a bit of a numbers game for Shauna too, in that she thinks if there is a chance that the deck is rigged against Hannah, I got to step in there. I got to keep my people close, because from what we see in this episode, the faith in her is really shaken at the beginning. Like I was trying to do math in my head. I was like, who's drinking the Shauna Kool-Aid right now? It's Lottie a little bit, obviously. Hannah and the rest of the girls are almost more afraid of her. Some are still like totally buying into the wilderness being this kind of mythical thing. But I think there's a very healthy fear of Shauna going around. And as you said, Jess, she wants to like maintain this control, and she'll kind of do whatever she has to do that. And her instincts are right, but she focuses almost on only half of the things that are going on to kind of, circumvent her authority.
Well, I think there's an interesting thing there about, just to dive in a little bit, about when Hannah gets confronted by Nat. And I do think, I think I'm like, I'll pat myself on the back here, but like the killing of Cody, I believe Hannah's response to Nat. And so I think her killing Cody is like, this is my way to get out. It's not a like, yep, I believe all the things you're saying, I'm buying in. This is the way I will survive out here. And as soon as she sees that there is potentially another opportunity to survive, she is also willing to, be in line with that as well. And so this plan to get the satellite up on the top of the mountain is one that, like, she's not trying to disrupt whatever Nat wants to do, but I agree with you, Jesse, that this really, and Jess as well, in terms of Shauna steps in to assert control. And that to me is really fun, because I think that there's only so much I think you can play around with like science versus faith. And I think that it has become pretty clear that there are it's very funny that the person that, not funny, I guess, but Lottie is like, oh, it's Aquila who like is tuned in, and Shauna steps in and basically becomes the leader by like force. And yet the person who like technically, Lottie sees the most sort of faith in is also controlling things this episode by like actually killing like she makes her thing come true, like, so I think it's quite fascinating when we look, and I guess my point here in this particular, Jess, is that it really solidifies, I think, like, and I think there's so much thematic tension now with the way in which we can take what happened here, which I think is um Shauna being at odds with Ty about, like, that's where Shauna sees the conflict, and then whether or not she'll find out that the satellite got taken, but she has the direct conflict. And now in the present day, like, Ty's reaction to what happened to Van is actually not to be mad at Melissa, but to actually be mad at Shauna. And so I think that that's very, very fun, to sort of be playing with those two things.
Yeah, it's Shauna has so many enemies at this point in both the past and present that it's hard for her to wrap her arms around all of them at the same time, right? Like she's getting attacked by Melissa in the woods while Natalie's climbing up a mountain to use a satellite phone. Like no one is really on her side at this point. Maybe if you wanted to argue that Lottie is, but in my opinion, Lottie's just kind of like an independent, She has her own philosophies and thoughts, and then she'll just go along with Shauna because it means that they get to stay in the wilderness. And that's ultimately what she wants to do. And I would include Aquila as kind of like a subset of Lottie in a way, right? Where Lottie is just trying to, it's interesting because I almost feel like Lottie is, that subsect of religion that will kind of like twist things to make it work for their benefit, in that, okay, we need a hunt to satisfy the wilderness. Well, to manipulate it to make a hunt, you need to kill your animals. Like it right, instead of it being the more, I don't want to say natural hunt, but like Jackie gets roasted and they eat her. Very different than picking cards or stacking the deck in order to kill a person to satisfy the wilderness. It's all so fascinating. And I'm so excited for the Ty versus Shauna, especially Jesse, because I feel like we got a, a, a hint of it, or like a
Sorry, that
glimpse.
Jesse or me, Jesse?
Yeah, sorry, that the other Jesse. Yes.
Okay,
Uh,
great.
I was
I
confused
think
too.
Yeah, I know.
I think we got a hint of it. First of all, in general, we've always talked about Ty being one of the only people who can stand up to Shauna.
Mhm.
And that's throughout the whole all 3 seasons. But even in this finale episode, when they are in the woods together, hunting, and Ty looks at Shauna and she says, "If you know what's good for you, you will back up." And Shauna does. And
Yeah.
that's big, right? She doesn't do that for just anybody.
She hasn't done it all season. It's really interesting. And also it's like, Ty has this nuclear option, this like other version of her that, we've seen come out, and like we think sometimes it's at bay, it's been at play in the adult version of her throughout most of the season. So it's gonna be a pretty epic showdown, especially if Ty and Misty are working together. But I'm really here for this full Sean as the big bad. I love this. Like, let Melanie Linsky and Sophie Elise cook, because we're going to be in for some epic stuff. And where does Melissa fall into this too in the future?
Yeah.
In the past, we know, she had this moment where she was, ready to fully kill her and then kind of stop at the last thing. Can we also point out Shauna called her boring for not fully murdering her?
So I do want to talk about, I was just going to highlight this, and I would love for you, which is, I feel like, give credit to the show, where like we were talking about Jess in recent weeks of like, I don't know whether you said it wasn't working or not, but we were like a little bit like, I'm not sure I get the like Melissa wanted a nice boring life thing with what she does to Van. And I
Yeah.
think that there was a little bit for me a feeling like, I'm sure it's coming, but I don't quite get it now. And to be very honest, part of me was feeling like there's a part of me that I always felt like, Jess, when you and I would talk about Succession, and apologies, bingo card that I named another show to our listeners, but I would always be like, I just want Kendall Roy to go and have a fine life. I don't need him to I just need him to
Mhm.
go and be fine. And I was like rooting for that ending. And so I think I was like a little like, I am rooting for them all to have nice, boring lives. Like a little bit like we should all acknowledge that it was all traumatic. And if there's things you have to do to amend what you did, like, yes, but also for the most part, like teenagers, children who were in a traumatic plane accident, and let's sort through that, probably through therapy and restorative circles, and then we'll move on with their life. I have to say that probably would make a very boring finale season of a television show, so they're not going to do it. And I think the thing about Melissa that I really liked this episode is that I think very much you can see that probably is what Melissa wanted for a very long time, was like, maybe I actually can just have a normal, boring life. And it's complicated because she's with Alex and blah, 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 blah. And then she, because of traumatic events that have happened in her life, she does a thing that she probably shouldn't have done, which is sends the thing. And we should talk about the letter, and we'll talk about the letter later, because I think that to me throws a little bit of confusion. But what I think is really, I love about the Shauna being like, I knew you'd turn out to be boring thing, is I'm like, well, there's Melissa's reason to have killed Van. Is Melissa, I think, probably thrives on what she was, and sort of is gravitated towards the thing that she wanted from the very beginning with Shauna, which is acknowledgement of her, of seeing something in her. That, and I think Shauna was getting the same thing from Melissa, when Melissa was like, you take charge, like that's good, that's great, that's good, here's this knife, thing,
Yeah.
shows how much I hunt. That I think it just explains a lot in terms of modern day Melissa, after see this interaction where Shauna basically ridicules her for not murdering her.
Yeah, to go back to a reference that you made earlier, Grace, of Breaking Bad, I think Melissa saw not killing, choking Shauna out, but not killing her as a half measure. And so I think in the present day, when she kills Van, she's done with half measures. She's done being boring. She's going to do what she has to do for self-preservation. That's what it feels like to me. I think she probably wishes she killed Shauna when she had the opportunity. But she couldn't at the time for whatever reason, whether it's an emotional one or just that, she doesn't have that killer instinct that Shauna does. And so Melissa as a character is so interesting. And I'm really curious what we're going to see of her in the future, because we are hemorrhaging Yellowjackets left and right, like in both timelines, right? Like Yellowjacket after Yellowjacket is off the board. So to have one be added on to the board is almost nice, Jesse, because it's like, okay, well, even though we lost Van, we lost Lottie, everybody's leaving, Jeff and Callie are on the run, like everyone's going everywhere. Well, okay, now we also have Melissa, so we can maybe tie her back into the grander story in season
And it's
4.
not done either. We're expecting we're probably going to lose a couple more in the past too. I mean, I don't think we don't know exactly how this is all going to shake out. Like, I still think before rescue gets there, a couple people more might die. But also, what's fascinating to me now is like, is there a world where Melissa and Taissa can work together against Shauna after she's like fully murdered Van? Like, there's just so much interesting stuff to mine there through that dynamic. And I think I read in that article that if the show was to come back, Hilary Swank would be a regular. I think that was also something that was said.
I saw
So
that
it's
as
like,
well.
yeah. So I feel like we'd get a lot more of her. And, there's, as you said, there's a lot of space available in that future storyline now because we're losing people left and right. And I'm really excited to see it. By the way, did you guys, I don't remember if you guys mentioned that they actually put Hilary Swank in that baseball cap.
Yeah.
I did. I was watching.
Yeah,
I was
so
like,
funny.
okay, we know
Yeah.
who. We get it. We
Yeah,
got
we
you.
get it. Okay,
Yeah.
we understand.
25 years
Melissa.
later, she's still wearing that baseball cap. Like, it kind of made me laugh out loud. And Hilary Swank's like so good
funny.
that it. Yeah,
She doesn't wear the baseball cap for the rest of. She hasn't worn it
It's
since.
just the
Yeah,
once.
it's just to see introduce her, and it's like, okay, yeah, we got it.
You're
thanks.
Melissa.
And then, yeah, and then 2 seconds later, yeah, she's like, hello, Melissa. We're like, no, we caught on. We caught on.
I got it. I got it.
But yeah, I mean, listen, anytime I can get more Hilary Swank, I'm thrilled. I didn't get her in Cobra Kai, spoiler alert. So I'm really happy to see her here. And yeah, because I'm very concerned that, Shauna's going to go full Antler Queen in the future. And gotta say, I'm really concerned for Jeff. And, beyond that, I want to see like what alliances are going to form, because I think there's just so much juicy stuff here.
Yeah, let's chat. I mean, the last thing I think from the past we should talk about is like Shauna's the Antler Queen. We got the. Am I right? This is the image from the start of the show.
This
right?
is
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
This is
100%.
it. She is the Antler Queen. And I need to point out, because I don't know if this is something people are going to be talking about, but they need to. She's wearing Mari's hair on her body, and this is after, like, I noticed, I don't know if other people have picked up on this, that after she discovered Hannah's hair on that branch and when they were trying to escape, there the scene in which she catches Cody and Hannah trying to escape, she's like fiddling in her tent or her hut with Hannah's hair. Like, it is, they're really going all out there with Shauna. Like, she is fully Lord of the Flies, like savage, no turning back. And obviously we'll talk about the journaling at the end of the episode, but it's the hair on the outfit. Like, she's fully Antler Queening. And I think, Grace, what we all assumed to be true based on the very first scene of the entire show is that all of these other people are like her subjects, right? We saw that image they gave us this episode of Misty removing the mask, putting on the glasses with the broken lens and smiling. We all kind of thought, oh my gosh, they're all savage, right? No, she's smiling because they duped Shauna. So even though Shauna is Antler Queen, are you really a queen if your subjects are trying to revolt against you?
Yeah, what I think works extremely well, and I actually think like, well, one thing maybe just before we move on, but the hair is it just to be weird? Like like actually honestly, like why?
Because it was
like,
weird.
Like what's like is it a signal of the control that she thinks she has? Like what are we?
I think it's also like if I'm really reading into it,
please.
I think that teenage girls specifically put a lot of like time and energy into making their hair look good, right? It's like a source of pride. So I almost think it's like, oh, screw you, Mari. You don't even get your hair anymore. Like, I'm taking the thing that makes you the most feminine, or like, I'm taking the thing maybe you cared about most. And this is like a real, like, I'm really trying to read into it, but
Are you
like,
splitting hairs?
I am splitting hairs. Maybe that's
Mm.
it. I don't know.
What do you
It's a
think, Jesse? Do
weird
you have
thing
a
It's a-
to do.
do you
I
have a
think it's like
you think
it's like a trophy, maybe. I think
yeah,
she's like,
trophy.
she likes
Yeah,
having
okay.
trophies
Yeah.
from her hunts. I mean, we got, Cody's head on a spike, like,
Yeah.
which is just
Yeah.
slowly rotting. And I think and there was also seemed to be there was a personal animosity with Mari and Shauna too. And I think it's like, yeah, like I want to carry a piece of her around to like show my dominance. Like this woman sometimes like stepped up against me and we all hunted her, and now like I've got her hair. Whatever it is, it's so disgusting and so perfect. Which is like
Yeah.
the combination that Yellowjackets thrives in.
Yeah. I just think that like I know like I do agree that it's like kind of weird and gross or whatever, but I actually want to give the show more credit than that. That like I think actually stuff tends to be important in the way that it's not like I don't think they would honestly do it if it wasn't. So let's talk about okay, I do want us to then segue that into like modern day Shauna. And so I do have just you and I were chatting a little bit as we were watching the episode of like a little bit of like, is the note that we find out like slips under the fridge, is it a little too cute? And I do think it like, to me, I think that there's a way in which like, as much as my immediate thought was like, oh, it's invalidating Melissa's like it's invalidating the theory that like Melissa was did not or I'm trying to articulate this. Basically, like I wanted to feel like she wasn't poking the bear. I think there's no way to read sending the tape without being like, no, you knew what you were doing. That you weren't just trying to let her move on. The letter does reinforce that idea that she maybe was genuine about trying to let Shauna move on. Yet I don't know how to like square that with her killing Van. So I think that like even this letter still probably like she knows what she's doing, and it ultimately leads to this moment where Shauna is going to journal and I feel like for the first time what's really interesting is that we get the like she says it. She's like, I was an effing queen. Like this is why I didn't do it for any other I liked what happened out there. I liked the control I got. And so it almost like makes me sympathize with her. Am I like way off on my like the fact that
I think we're actually supposed to read it a very different way. I think we are supposed to see that Shauna, just like she was in the past, was extremely paranoid in the present day storyline. She thinks people are cutting her brakes and locking her in freezers, and we still don't really know what happened with the phone and the ringtone and all of that. But I think this letter proves like Melissa was telling the truth to you. Like she was being honest and forthright with you. Whether or not we want to say she had ulterior motives for sending the tape, that's one thing, right? Because again, like I said, you're poking the bear very easily. You could see that this would poke at Shauna. But the letter, the contents of the letter is exactly what Melissa said it was. I did my due diligence. I paused a million times. I have the what we could see at least of the letter. So it reads, "It's been a while. I guess I should start by saying I'm sorry for leading you to believe I was dead. I've done a lot of work since then. More and more days, I'm able to wake up and look at my beautiful family and not even think about what happened out there. Still, I've been struggling to let go completely, which is why I'm sending you the tape. It's pretty darn close to evidence of murder, and I guess I was keeping it as evidence just in case you guys ever," and I'm assuming it says like tried to find me or trying to hunt me down. And then we get like little flashes later of the letter and there is a line that says like forgive yourself. So it does read like what Melissa said it said, right? And I think we're supposed to see this, Jesse, as like Shauna was wrong and she felt like she was right. And Grace, we talked all season long about her feeling the need to be like vindicated and need to justify everything she's done.
Yep.
But Jesse, this letter is proof that she was blatantly incorrect.
I think it's that thing, right? Of like, you can't escape your past. And for Melissa, that's what she tried to do, what appears on the surface level to be a good deed of like, give this olive branch, this peace offering. I personally, from my standpoint, I did think if there's anything about any of this that I thought was just a little convenient. It was the letter falling under the fridge, but
It was like the body under the dumpster, you know? It was
Yeah.
like a little too cute by half. That was the one
Yes.
thing that I would have been like, I could have done without the letter under the fridge, honestly.
Exactly. But there is also sort of this theme in this show of, I think, of people misinterpreting things, misunderstandings. As you said, the paranoia with Shauna is that these girls, like, they almost can't catch a break in their lives. Like, this thing follows them. And I think for Melissa, I think both things can be true. I think everything in the letter was genuine. We have to remember too, you know, Shauna broke into her home, like, basically attacked her, pinned her down, made her like eat her own flesh. Then she tried to run away, got kidnapped by her other 3 friends, like tied up in her own house. And then when she came to, Van was debating whether or not to stab her and kill her. So I do think,
when you put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, she does. Like, Van clearly is not going to do it. And then Melissa kills her anyway. But there's a very realistic world where Melissa's like really kind of acting in self-defense here.
Oh, but also in that letter, actually, just like to clip, like, I love actually you read it out, Jess, because there's a piece of like, I've been struggling to let it go completely. Well, is there anything that would struggle to make you be able to let go of it completely other than everything Jesse just mentioned? And then the fact that you're then in that moment is like, whatever, so Jesse, I think it's actually a good point. So
yeah, I think that, like, you know, the thing that's becoming more and more evident, and I think this is more discussing the show as a whole, is it's like there was a part of these survivors that came out of them in the wilderness, this kind of that they can't really make peace with. It's like, why did I turn, you know, to such a kind of a savage state? And, you know, in my opinion, it's like they're trying to use this otherworldly kind of supernatural force as an excuse for that, to kind of make peace with what they're struggling with in their lives. Lottie obviously had, like, she had some kind of a mental disorder that she was taking medication for in the first season that she didn't have out there. So she was maybe a little more susceptible to that. And the girls kind of fell in the line. And I think it's just something that's haunted them for the rest of their lives. And like, they can't seem to escape it. And, you know, there's something really kind of, I think to a lesser degree, relatable about it, in terms of like that rush, that adrenaline, that's, you know, hard to stay away from.
Teenagers do stupid things. They often don't eat each other. It's very rare, as far as I can tell. But it like they do stupid things, and you want to assume that the reason you did the stupid thing you did was not because you're a bad person. And it's for whatever else might have been going on in your life. And yet these girls and some of the guys out there, they were in a situation where if they didn't do that thing, they, if they didn't choose to hunt somebody down, then they might have been the ones who were eating themselves. And like it's the way they got through the winter. Like they are looking, and I think it's what's really interesting about that piece. I've never really fully like tuned in specifically about, I think there's 3 people who I think get the most out of, they're the people who stand up and say, we're not leaving. They're the people who want to stay, which is Shauna, which I think it's very clear that Shauna likes. There's actually a thing you were saying earlier, Jessica, that was reminding me. I used to be a summer camp director, and it was very common to, when I had a camper who was exhibiting bullying behavior, to call home, and the parents were like, no, there's no way, he gets bullied at home. And you're like, oh, that actually is like extremely common, that if you get bullied at home, you come to a new environment, you establish the power dynamic. You are not getting bullied out here. You are not. I'm at summer camp. I'm not getting bullied like I do at home. I will. And they often were the kids who were bullied at home are the kids who come to summer camp and are exhibiting bullying behavior. So I feel like that inversion for Shauna is very true. Ty, it's like a whole other being who's like basically like can choose of like, no, we gotta stay out here because like it's really fun. I get to do all this like wild stuff. We gotta stay out here. And then Lottie, like, there's a little bit of like, he doesn't quite fit in, but she has a really nice, but I think it is that mental thing that if people tell you that you're like, and I'm using this in the like not in the way I would say it, but people say you're like you're seeing things, you're crazy, you're not seeing right, and then suddenly you can develop this belief system that like affirms that you're not crazy. Like that feels like a thing that you might get really comfortable with and want to keep and maintain. So yeah, they just all can't get over their past trauma. But I find the letter just really that Shauna writes, that she journals again. And I do think it's interesting. I mean, I guess the piece, I basically like the whole way through, I'm like, oh, finally she's acknowledging it, until the end where she's like, all right, I'm going to take it back. I'm going to do it again, basically. And I'm like, oh no, that's bad. Yeah. That part is bad. Yeah. But until the point where she says that, I'm like, yeah, this is a real acknowledgement of why you exhibited the behavior and made the choices that you were making, you know?
Yeah, I really do think Jeff and Callie were the only things keeping Shauna from reverting to this version of herself. I think having a family and having to maintain some sort of, I don't know if mask is really the word for it, but some sort of like, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I
We get
have
these
these
glimpses of
identifying labels.
when it pierced through at the like we get like killing the rabbit early in season one.
Mhm.
Like we get these moments that are like going way back to where she was trying to uphold this image and it was seeping through. And now I think she's just like, well, whatever then.
Well, yeah, she's fully gone now because Jeff and Callie are gone, and she's heard from Jeff saying basically, "Please stop reaching out to us. Like we're safe, we're okay, but we don't want to talk to you right now." And yeah, it's really interesting. I also wrote down what Shauna journals because this is, I really like the book ending as well of Shauna journaling in the wilderness in the premiere of this season with the
Mhm.
voiceover, and then we get the modern day Shauna doing it. So she says, I tried to remember for years what happened out there and to understand why it seemed like I couldn't remember so much of it, why none of us could. I'm finally starting to realize we can't remember it because at some point we became so alive in that place that we lost our capacity for self reflection. The trauma people say survivors forget things to protect themselves because they were so horrible. But I think we can't or won't remember it clearly because we recognize that deep down we were having so much fun. That's the terrible truth we left out there, buried along with the people we called our friends. Except it's all coming back to me now. The danger, the thrill, the person I was back then. Not a wife or a mother. I was a warrior. I was a fucking queen. I let all of it slip away from me. It's time to start taking it back. Jesse,
It's
this
so
is the
epic.
diary of a serial killer. Like,
Yeah, and I think
thrill?
that's the part that I thought was fascinating. Her saying, like that, insinuating that she forgot or that, trying to remember what happened. I really want to hear more about that. Like, how much of that is true? How much of that is like again something she told herself? I think everyone in their lives to varying degrees goes through traumatic things that they kind of forget, or like even moments that I can experience where I've like gotten a job and I'm so excited and I'll say like, oh my God, I kind of blacked out for like those 2 minutes because I was just so in the zone, so happy that like, she's almost saying like that's like a huge part of like her memories of the wilderness. And it's really exciting to dig into because I think that um I think that what we're gonna see, like especially at the beginning of next season, willing that we get one, is like how do we transition from like how stark crazy Shauna was to like the rescue where everyone seems to, at least the beginning, work together to formulate this story. Like, is there a kind of a come down for Shauna? Is she gonna have a moment where she kind of, when knows rescue is coming, of like kind of grounds herself again? And what does that
Mhm.
look like? And then at the same time, there's gonna be this parallel of her ungrounding herself in the future and really embracing that old Antler Queen. And I think those two kind of opposite dynamics are going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think I do think, yeah, we're kind of predicting that it does feel like we're on a little bit of a, um, Shauna versus the world thing. And I actually think, again, to credit the show, I think you and I just last week, when did Van die? We were like, well, it doesn't
Two
feel,
weeks ago?
it doesn't feel like Melissa potentially is going to be on, like, isn't Ty going to be out for, um, Melissa, which I think still could be like partially true, but actually like a big reason is that she mostly blames Shauna. So
Right, and
yeah,
keeping in mind that Ty was not Ty for most of this season, she was
right.
other Ty, I think is really important because when Ty buries Van's body and eats her heart, like truly, I need to say that out loud because it is a thing that happened. And we are 49 minutes into this podcast and haven't brought it up because that's how crazy the show is. There's so much going on. Ty eats Van's heart and she says to her, I'm done forgetting. I'm going to remember all of it. I'm going to remember all of you, all of me. Like it really feels like we are merging Ty and other Ty, right? And so Ty, I think Ty is satiating other Ty with a promise of a kill, if that makes sense. Like, Ty is out for vengeance against Shauna, which I think will quell other Ty enough to let real Ty have control of the body, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think while we're hearing Shauna now remembering some of the stuff that she did out there, it turns out a lot of them have this sort of memory loss or blacking out or just not wanting to remember everything that happened out there. And it has led to Ty now remembering, like, Shauna is a lot was the one who fueled a lot of this. She thrived on it.
Yeah.
And Grace, we've often talked about the last yellow jacket standing. Is that what it's going to come to? Is it going to be the last one standing? And Ty invites Misty to like get coffee and says, we don't want her to be the last one standing. And I love this alliance.
Yes.
I really do. I
Well,
think it's very dangerous.
I think that there's a chance that I do think Misty and Ty being together, I think makes some sense. And I actually think it seems strange, but I think you could easily see Shauna and Melissa back together. I think that this idea that, I mean, it goes back to the thing you were talking about, Jesse, of the way in which they can't let go of the stuff that happened to them. They are all still stuck in what happened, and the way in which Melissa was attracted to Shauna in the first place because of the type of person she was, the ability for her to take control. And what I think what we like want Melissa to do is to be like, you don't need affirmation from Shauna. Like, you could just go live your life and be normal. But we do see that, like, when things start happening again, Melissa does engage in the wilderness of it all. Like, she does engage. She does her 90s version of herself comes through, and she does kill Van. It'll be interesting, I think, to see if there's more to Melissa and Hannah in terms of the two of them, and then how that relates to Shauna. But I think, for now, I could definitely see a world where, like, actually Shauna saying, like, I'm back, and Melissa being like, leaning into it. I think you could see the two of them actually, like, maybe being together for a bit. Not
Yeah.
together, but like, well, maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least working together, and I think
Yeah.
the other wild card in that is Alex. I mean, where's Alex going to fit into all this too? That we kind of haven't checked in there, but yeah, like I think it's the ghost of the person that they became out there. There's kind of been this reoccurring theme too with these visions when they die in the future. It's like their past self that like sort of brings them into the afterlife, and whatever you want to call it. I kind of have a theory on that too, that there seem to be in this episode, it's like they're going to greet some kind of an Antler Queen at that time as well, which is really kind of fascinating. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be an all-out war. Like, this is going to be Avengers Civil War, Yellow Jacket style. And, just right now, it's like, I feel like the last one standing, funnily enough, I think will be Misty in a weird way. I think, like, she's sort of got this, she was actually on the team. She was sort of like, again, someone that was kind of cast aside. I do kind of see this world where, she's the only one going, but we're going to lose more Yellow Jackets in the future for sure. I don't see a world where our three, main women from the first season make it all the way to the end. And it's just, yeah, it's really fascinating too. 'Cause like, the only person it feels, although we did see it a bit in season 2 with Travis, is like, he seems to be the only one that kind of at this point is no longer buying into this at all. And he's off the board, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Travis really took a step back. He had a bigger part in the season earlier on, right?
Yeah.
When he's working with Lottie, and then he really takes a back seat for these last few episodes. However, there is that one moment we get with him when the hunt is just beginning. We see he's been drinking that berry wine, and he says, none of this is real,
Yeah.
Don't you ever wonder whose reality we're in? Some of my thoughts are Javi's thoughts. My favorites are Jackie's thoughts. Now, like, surely could be the ramblings of a drunk man, right? Like, of course, but it's Yellow Jackets. So, like, we can't just take it at face value. So many people talked about the yellow tint and are they in an alternate
Oh
reality?
yeah,
And,
it's gone.
it's gone. We're in winter. The
Mhm.
yellow tint seems no more. We never got hide nor hair of, oh, those huts aren't what they seem to be. Everything has seemed to be on the up and up. But Jesse, you bring it up, and I was going to bring it up as well, the kind of crossing paths of past and future selves, and Lottie leading herself to that, that dark hallway with the candles, and which she
Mhm.
had a vision of with Laura Lee. Like, it's all very connected. And it almost feels like, not to get too deep into the well of like, okay, time is not linear,
It's a
like
flat
something,
circle.
yeah, something in the vein of that.
It's a full
Um
circle. That's what the episode title is called.
There you go.
God, it all connects. But to bring it back to what you were saying about Misty being the ultimate soul survivor, I
Mhm.
totally agree with you there, because it is often the hand of the king, or the one who's whispering into the king's ear, that lives the longest, because they're able to adapt and go from power to power. And on top of that, someone who has been fairly absent through the back half of this season that I do want to quickly mention here is Misty has Walter looking out for her in
Mhm.
the way that none of the other Yellow Jackets have at this point, right? Like, Ty really burned her bridge with her wife and son. We have, Callie and Jeff are on the lam. Who knows where they are? So Misty does have Walter, and Walter is watching her from in his car when she is meeting with Ty. What I cannot gauge is the look on Walter's face. It's almost like disapproving in a way, or like judgmental. And I'm wondering if it's because he warned Misty about her friends, and, oh, they're always trying to pull you in. Like, is that why he has that look on his face, Grace? Or is there something I'm missing here that I'm not picking up on?
No, I think I was very skeptical of Walter early on in the season, specifically, where I was a little like, I felt like he did not have Misty's best interest. I actually think I'm completely wrong about that. I think for the most part, I think what we said, and there's a lot of, because I'm wondering what you think about. There's a lot of theories about Walter, and like, is he secretly, the scientist kid, like, is he somebody that we should, is there more to Walter than meets the eye? I'm not necessarily on that train. I actually think the show is sort of bearing out to show the twists. They are more into, I think, shocking moments than shocking, like, how's the best way to articulate that? It's like, you would have never seen this coming. It's not quite that. Like, it's a little different than that in a way that I think is really good. So I don't know that we're in store for a, like, Walter's secretly the kid of a scientist. I think he honestly just, like, doesn't want Misty to be involved with people who he thinks don't treat her with respect. But I don't know, what do you think, Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to really kind of think that he's just the citizen detective. I mean, listen, back in season 1, I was ringing the bell that Adam was Javi, like, so
Yeah.
much. I was like
Yeah.
so on board with that. And I was, texting my friends on the show being like, I know I'm right about this. I know I'm right about this. And getting like LOLs back and no other context. And I ended up being totally wrong. So
That's the
do
type of
I,
thing I think they're not, like, I think that we were kind of learning that's not,
yeah,
this isn't the type of mystery that the show, that's not the type of twist they do. They will do Hannah turns around and stabs Cody in the face. Like, they'll
yes.
do that, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah, it's not really as much like that was more of a lost thing. Lost,
Yes.
like, to go, oh, long lost brother, cousins, I'm your fault. Like, I'm this person in the future. Like, yeah, I think he's just a guy, but like, where does he stand with Misty now is a really intriguing question because, the last time they spoke, she sort of like betrayed him. She took a piece of information and took
Yeah.
off. Like, so, and Elijah Wood played that moment so well because, like you, Jess, I don't really know. I agree. Is he disappointed she's working with Ty? Is he happy that they seem to be formulating some kind of a plan? But, you don't cast Elijah Wood on a show and just leave him there. He's going to play a big part somewhere. And I do think him and Misty will circle back to working together.
They're twin
But
flames.
yeah, exactly, they have to. They're soulmates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just something I noticed that I had to point out, because I'm like, what is Walter's plan here? Like, I think you're right, Jesse. I think Walter is very important in terms of Misty's success, survival, however you want to look at it, he's going to be the one coming in clutch because he's the person looking out for Misty more so than even Misty is looking out for herself at times, I would say.
Yeah.
I also think there's this debate going on. There's been this debate about whether people are good or not, and I think this is a show that has basically everybody we've seen is to a degree mostly pretty flawed. Especially our Yellowjackets, like the people who were in the plane accident. I feel like a lot of them are flawed. I do feel like Misty gets some credit this episode for basically to redeeming. There's still another thing that I think she'd have to get some redemption for to be able to be like, okay, I feel pretty good. But I feel like she has redeemed breaking the trans. It's still really bad. Don't get me wrong, it's still bad. But she does help the rescue. She helps the satellite mission. We haven't talked about this.
Yeah.
There's two things we haven't talked about really, and we're an hour in. Which is one is the last shot of Nat on the mountain is so cool. It is so good, and I think
such a fist bump moment. I pumped my fists so hard.
It's
the
so
music
good.
cue, I loved it. Yeah.
And Sophie Thatcher, we don't need to sing her praises anymore, but Sophie Thatcher, come on,
she's so good.
She's so good. She's her emoting is everything. And so her calling for rescue, we assume that this is the rescue that is actually will connect, will result in them being rescued. And also, I just have to point out, because this is how great this freaking show is, let's all point back to season 1 when we had Ty, Shauna, Nat, and was it just the 3 of them? Yeah, in the van. And they're like, we owe Nat our life. She's the one who saved us. And we kept saying, Grace, well, she was a provider.
She's a
she was
hunter,
hunting a lot, all that stuff. No, she's literally the one who's on the satellite phone getting them rescued. Come on. That is perfect writing.
Yeah, it's really
so
good.
Badass. Yeah, and I really thought that I was worried that, with us losing, old Nat last season, I was like, I wonder if that's going to mean kind of a more limited presence for young Nat. But honestly, the scene this season that really choked me up was when the snow starts falling and she's surrendered herself to oh, we're here for a whole other season. And it was just so effective. I remember watching going, am I actually fully tearing up right now at
really
what's going on? Yeah.
It's a kudos to it's the performance, it's the casting of the show is particularly strong. The performances are really good, but also it's all the things that make the show full. It's the cinematography, that's the props. Sometimes snow can actually look not good, I've seen bad snow.
Good.
So it's a credit to them. So then the other thing I've said we haven't really talked about, which is that we do get the reveal that Callie killed Lottie, and this was a highly sort of predicted thing that was happening. And then they
do a little pet.
Me too. Same here. The whole time I knew it. Yeah.
They faked this out with the Shauna thing, but then people are like, well, didn't actually say that. We definitely had people being very appreciative. We'll have to try and call them out by name. Who's like, with the way the DNA works, actually, it is kind of possible that it could be her
DNA,
because if it's both matriarchal DNA, but also if you don't know which DNA, it's possible that the DNA that Walter got is actually Callie's and not Shauna's. A piece of hair, Callie's hair could have been on Shauna, and that's what Walter gets, thinking he's getting there's ways in which the 100% DNA thing actually still totally tracks that it's not even that it's close, it's that it's there's lots of ways in which this makes sense. So this is very good. I will agree. I feel in terms of the show is so big, I one thing I will say is I feel we also Misty had such a phenomenal episode 1 and 2. I think that's her in the grieving Nat thing, and she's had moments throughout. I was kind of thinking when we get this scene, I was oh, we really haven't done I feel as much as we could with Christina Ricci this season, but we do get this scene with her and Callie where she sort of ends up confronting her and getting to admit that she had done it. And Callie explains sort of why she did it. So
yeah, I love I was gonna call out Christina Ricci. We've talked a lot about she doesn't think she's funny, but she's hysterical. Misty saying the lines mothers and daughters share mitochondrial DNA and homicidal tendencies, apparently.
That's right.
It's so good, right? And we get the whole explanation. I loved getting to flash to the scene of Callie and Lottie and not just getting a hearsay of what happened. I liked actually getting to see it. And Yeah, I mean, if I'm Callie and Lottie is saying what she's saying to me, like, I might push her down the stairs too. Like, this woman,
100%.
Jesse, like, she keeps talking about it, the wilderness, it, like, it's in you too, and your mother sees it growing in you, and it brought you here to me. And then she does the thing that we saw her do last season, Jesse, where she talks about it being, oh, it's our child. You are our child. You are our baby. Like, girl,
It
stop.
is off the walls bonkers. And yeah, I mean, in that situation, they and the way that they performed it, it really looked like it wasn't like a malicious "I'm trying to kill you" thing. But again, it's like this is what happens, and it's like a theme in this show that like no matter what, there's this kind of almost unlucky, like traumatic bad luck thing that courses through these girls' veins. And I do think though. I do think there's, I mean, obviously she's her daughter, but I do think there is that part of Callie that's like her mom. And I feel like we're heading in a direction where at some point, Callie's going to do something that's not an accident, that's like fully purposeful. And we're going to
Yeah.
see this, like, apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Like, I could see a world where the show sort of ends on this, like, you think is a hopeful note of like maybe Shauna has been taken care of and Callie and Jeff are okay, or just Callie. And then the other shoe drops where it's like, oh shit, Callie's as psychotic as her mom and she's out there in the world.
And part of it too, I think, is when we get that moment of Callie pushing Lottie, Lottie almost accepts it.
Mhm.
She, yes, we know she scratches the wall with her nails. To me, that felt accidental.
Mhm.
It's just by where the wall is in relation to her hand, because it's almost as if she accepts her fate when she's kind of falling back. And I believe it's because she has seen visions of this hallway. It's almost like she knows this is when and where she will die, and she has accepted that Callie is the one that has done it, and she thinks it's because the wilderness has willed it. The wilderness is in Callie, and now the wilderness has taken her own life. Like, that's how it felt to me. And while I do agree, obviously, that there's Callie in both the like the DNA sense and in generational trauma sense is very much has pieces of Shauna in her. I think what makes her different is that she truly does seem genuinely remorseful
Mhm.
about what happened, whereas I don't know that we've really seen that from Shauna without it being like a mask, like when Callie is talking to Jeff and admitting what she did, it really feels like she is scared and really sad and upset. And 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 I don't know, Grace, this all tracks to me. We've been saying all season long, like, what is Callie's motivation for like drugging Misty to talk to Lottie? Like, what exactly is she trying to get at? Is it the truth? What is it? But I do think ultimately is she wants to know who her mom is. Like, she doesn't understand Shauna. When she looks into her eyes, it's like looking into the earth. Like, she just wants to know who Shauna is, and and if she actually does love Callie.
Yeah, I think there's something extremely. I feel like actually a lot of people, correct me I feel like it takes sometimes people who are a little bit older than. I feel like you end up being a little bit older when when a lot of people start being like. I think once you become an adult and there's this like you get this transformation into and this understanding, and you're seeing like maybe you have like like a real job or something, and you're like, I feel like that's when a lot of people are like, I should like it'd be interesting to know more about my parents, and like what was their, like that's when I was like, what was my mom's first job out of school, and like what was, or that sort of, and you start to dig into it. I think it's extremely understandable that Callie, as like a teen, but also with a mom who like this, it's not like things weren't sensationalized, like there were stories about the Yellowjackets and wanting to understand it and being, I mean, like we all have a true crime obsession to some degree, and I feel like if it's your own mom, like it makes sense that Callie like goes deep into like wanting to know what happened. And she's also, one of the things that the show doesn't really show us, we've talked a lot about how the missing time period of the show is when they come back in the 90s. But the other piece of it is like kind of like what Shauna's life is like before we start the show. And I think one thing that we don't really know is like what was Shauna like as a mom before like the wilderness of it all started to creep back in. And I think that like, like mother like daughter, like the drugging of Misty is a little bit of like probably seeing the tendencies in Shauna's that maybe weren't like quite as extreme as everything that like, she had to do when she was out in the wilderness. But Shauna does not seem to me like a person who doesn't get their way, And so if Shauna saw that and then Callie, sees that, and then Callie is like, well, I just drug Misty to like, hang out with Lottie and figure out, what my mom is like, I think that the show has done a pretty good job of making Callie similar to Shauna. But the reason, Jesse, I feel like we keep going back and forth on this little bit, like, yeah, Shauna's bad, but then I keep going like, she had a miscarriage out there. She was in a plane crash. Like, there's many reasons to think that this is like full on PTSD. And the same thing I think applies for Callie, where you're like, she's definitely making bad choices, but also lots happening in her life.
Definitely. And I think, what I'm kind of expecting too is that we're going to see actually through the conception and birth of Callie, that might be the thing that like brings Shauna back from the edge and kind of like brings her to that sense of normalcy that she kept for so long. And now that Jeff has sort of taken Callie away from her, that's when that other side will come out. And that's, if they go that direction, that's a really interesting position for Callie to be in, to be like, oh, am I the one thing that was keeping my mom from like reverting back to that thing that happened to her? Because you're right. Like it's easy. And I've been doing it to kind of dunk on some of the things that Sean has done, but she's been through a hell of a lot, like after the plane crash. Yeah. Like the pregnancy, losing the child. And even like, before that, just some of the secrets she was carrying with Jackie, that she was having this, a relationship with Jeff, like, all these things kind of manifest. And then when you go through this trauma, it can, come out in different ways. I mean, obviously not to the same degree, but I'm someone who suffers from like anxiety, and things that I've been through affect me in different ways. And so it's very relatable. And that's why this show is so good, is because it's like, you take to this point, you're like, oh my God, I so relate to what you're going through. And then it's a turn. It's like, oh, well, now you've gone a bridge too far. But you fully understand how it went there. And I think the familial dynamics next season are going to be really fascinating. And I said it before, I'll say it again. I'm very scared for Jeff. I do think there's a world where we could see like some kind of accidental stabbing or something. A lot of people get stabbed. Stabbing is a recurring theme here.
It's a very
a lot
stabby
of
show.
stabbings. Even after you're dead, you get stabbed. Yeah. So I don't know. I love Jeff. He was probably the character I was the most wrong about from the pilot to now. Yeah. But I don't know. I could see a world where either like Shauna, like there's some kind of struggle and Jeff doesn't come out the other side. I would be devastated. But I don't know. I'm worried about Jeff.
I think if that happened, it would be really late in the show's run, like close to RHAP, because we need the levity that Jeff and Warren Cole provide on this show. Obviously, Misty, another wonderful source of like amusement and comedy, but Jeff brings levity, and he's such a pure character that I think it would be a big loss. Like, we would really feel the loss of Jeff if it were to
Agreed.
happen.
Prayer circle for Jeff. I agree.
Yeah, and but I can see what you're saying, Jesse, in terms of if Shauna wants Callie back, which I don't know that that's what she's feeling right now. But if we go back to the Shauna from the wilderness, the controlling Shauna, you could see easily her being like, this is my daughter, she's staying with me. But I feel like the way we leave this season is almost like Shauna is relieved of her duties. And now she can be the Shauna she wants to be, or the Shauna she remembers being in the wilderness. It doesn't, she wants to know that Callie is safe. I don't know that her number one priority is hunting down where Jeff and Callie are, but I could be misreading, what she's saying in her journal entry as well.
No, that's a good point. It could be a sense of like, finally, I don't have these responsibilities and I can fully embrace this side of me, which is, again, maybe even a more dangerous place to put her if she's not like desperately seeking that humanity that exists within her family.
Right.
It's like, what does she have? And I didn't think about that. That's a really interesting place to put her too. I mean,
and I think part of it is furthered by what Misty says to her, right? Like, we've seen all season long Misty like butting up against Shauna and being like, no, you're a monster and you're selfish and you like, all these other words. But Misty is the one who's like, kind of reading her the riot act when Shauna comes to accuse Misty of like, what did you do with my family? Misty's like, are you stupid? Like, this is your fault. You were always the one who's doing this. And I think it's so fascinating, Grace. I know you liked the Misty versus Shauna of it all season.
I thought it was I thought they were just very cleverly. I think it's sort of heartbreaking because Misty, I think the point you made earlier, Jesse, about outsiders ending up in often these things. That's the trope, is like the person who's the most outsider of the group ends up being at the top of the power structure. And what's very interesting is that Shauna can say what she wants about being at the bottom of the power structure. She was not. Misty was at the bottom of the power structure, and Misty and Shauna actually continues to try and reinforce that power structure. It all earlier, the first half of the season is basically something goes wrong and Shauna's like, Misty's evil, and it's like, pot calling the kettle black a little bit here of like, actually, Shauna, you may need to look at like who you are as a person. And I feel really bad, and I think it's like sort of excellently woven into the beginning of the season and the Walter stuff. Actually, one of the things we haven't really talked about, and I haven't given the show enough compliments, is the way in which they weave things together. I think the way that they weave individual story arcs into story arcs that are about people, and the way that they theme things together, whether that's like all the Yellowjackets like getting together at the end of last season, or sort of everything that happened this season, or the 90s mirroring the present day, the themes mirroring. There's just a really, really excellent like bird's eye view of it all that they're able to sort of like weave together this thing, which I think is like really impressive. And so I really liked, because it makes me emotionally like, I'm like, Shauna, you're stop making fun of Misty. Like, stop assuming Misty is evil. Like, I know she's killed many people actually on the show, and yet I'm still like, come on, give her a break. It wasn't her. So I think that's well done. Jesse, do you mind if I ask you? You're an actor, and so
Yes.
you provide insight. I think you do when you watch a show that Jess and I might not have. So let me just ask you a couple questions. One is like, this is a show obviously you're a fan of, that you feel like you have friends who are in the show, but that you have just become really attached to it. What is the thing from you as an actor that you're seeing in the show that you're like, wow, this show is really like, it's really working. It's really like, or you're really drawn to it.
Yeah, well, just again, from a surface level, growing up, like, Lost was my religion in high school. That was the show I was obsessed with, that I watched every week. And obviously this show shares similar DNA. I've always loved kind of those mystery box shows. And again, just by kind of almost sheer coincidence, this happened to star like a lot of actors that I was a big fan of. Like,
Right.
I was a big Sophie Thatcher fan. Sophie Nélisse is from Quebec. I'm from Montreal.
Right.
Jasmine Savoy Brown, I knew had been cast in the new Scream franchise, and I'm a big, massive Scream fan. And so when, my buddy Kevin booked this thing and was kind of telling me about it, I was like, just as an actor, I'm so drawn to those kind of like survival, intense, long, long form archy shows. Like, I love, a character that starts off as one thing and ends up as something completely different. Like, so the Shauna arc was always super fascinating to me. The Misty arc was super fascinating to me. Even like one that's like a little funnier in Jeff. I love that. So those are the shows that I'm sort of drawn to. And I think
you mean
Yellow
listener
Jackets,
of the podcast, Warren Cole? Is that what you mean?
I mean, that was on the podcast. Great
Apparently,
interview,
yeah.
by the way.
Thank you.
But yeah, so I love those kinds of things, and Yellowjackets really does that super, super well. And yeah, I mean, I just love a mystery box show. Like, I love Severance. I love this. Again, I was a big Lost fan. I love Stranger Things. So this is like definitely right in my wheelhouse. And
Also,
I love Survivor, and they're survivors. So
we were doing it. It might have been with Taryn on Tastemakers one week where we were talking about like different show. I think it was the movie Black Bag. I was like, oh, it's actually just like Traitors, the movie. And then we're going through it, and I can't believe at no point was I like, oh, Yellowjackets is Survivor. And then they literally did the promo of like Yellowjackets is Survivor, and I feel like it is resonating with us. If this show was let's say they do like, gender blind casting, you could be anybody on the show. Who what role are you like, wow, if I could just be that?
Are
Like
you
that.
like, well, here, let me ask you this. Do you want to know which one I think I'd be considered for, or which one I'd
No,
want to play?
no, I don't want to know which one you're like, that's the most interesting role on the show, and I want to play it. You know, for you
I mean,
personally, that's the one I want to play.
I think it's probably Shauna.
Yeah, it's Shauna, right?
I think
Yeah.
that's the one for sure. I think, like, I mean, Sam Hanratty is like way more beautiful than I am, obviously, but I think that Misty's the role I would probably read for,
Yes.
which is, by the way, no complaints about that. But I think in terms of the juiciest one, it would
It's
be
Shauna. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, well, thanks for coming on, Jesse. Thanks for talking about the season.
Oh, guys, yeah, thanks again. Like, literally, I'm listening to the show. I was, RHAP, post-show recaps till now. I'm a massive fan of both of you. Grace, you and I met at
Yeah.
one of the live
Yeah.
events in Toronto, and I was literally starstruck. So this is honestly a dream come true to be here with you guys.
I was so excited to see you. Yeah, we were at the was that RHAP event we were at, or was that Bryson? I think it was RHAP, right?
Well, I saw you. Yeah, it was. Although I did go to a Bryce and Wendell event, but it was the episode of Survivor 44 where Carolyn played the idol on Carson.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Which is
That's right.
maybe weird speak for people that are listening to this that don't watch Survivor. But yeah,
we're on RHAP. We know scripted.
that's
TV.
true.
Okay. Yeah. Jess, anything else before we wrap up this podcast?
No, potentially we might have a podcast, some sort of a feedback, season wrap up, something or other down the line. But
And let me tell you, we're cooking on what that will turn out to be. So you just wait. Wait.
So everyone, if you wanna send in feedback, theories, thoughts on what they could do for a season 4, just anything you want, send it in. Leave us a comment in the YouTube channel. Find us at We Know Scripted TV. Hit us up on social media. You know where to find us. I thank you everyone who's listened to even a single podcast, because I adore the show and it means so much to me to be able to talk about it on a weekly basis. It is, I personally think, one of the best shows on TV right now. And I am so hopeful that now that we are like White Lotus is wrapping up, Severance is over, I'm hoping we can get enough eyes on season 3 to secure a season 4 for the show, because it is so well deserved. Every single one of the people involved in production just deserve a season 4 for the show, as do us, the viewers, because gosh, I know people were like a little bit lower on season 2. I had no idea they were just going to pedal to the metal season 3 in the way that they did, and it has been so impressive. So, yeah, I think that's about all I got. Grace, what about you?
No, I echo a lot of what you said and appreciate everyone who's listening. I feel like we've had an influx of YouTube listeners as well. We're on YouTube each week, and that's been really lovely, which has been a little bit new for us as we are trying to put out videos for each podcast that we do, and we've had a lot of people watch us on there, which has been very, very nice. So Jesse, thanks for joining us. Where can people find you, follow you? Where you've mentioned the trades on Crave if you're a Canadian.
Yes. Yes, trades on Crave if you're Canadian. Lots of fun. Blue collar comedy. You'll have a blast. If you want to hear me rant about Survivor or Scream or Yellow Jackets, I'm on Blue Sky and X at Jesse115115. Also on Instagram, Jesse JD Camacho. Come say hello. We'd love to hear from you.
Amazing. Jess, what else you got going on?
You can find me at the Jess Sterling. I'm always talking Buffy and Felicity over on Shit 90 Shows Taught Me. And then we're starting season 5 of Schitt's Creek over on Talking Shit. And of course, The Last of Us. It's coming out very, very soon. So check out Look for the Light, where Stuart and I talked all through season 1 of the show, through some of the gameplay in game 2 of The Last of Us. And super excited for season 2 of The Last of Us. So check out all of that at the Jess Sterling.
Very fun. Yeah, we're covering it here on We Know Scripted TV as well. For recaps, there's a lot of TV. Still doing the Wheel of Time, and there is Andor and all sorts of stuff. Busy spring. Check that out. Tara and I do the Tastemakers, and you can also check out my writing on Parade, including I interviewed many of these cast members in the Yellowjackets. So go check that out. Thanks so much for listening. Hopefully, we'll see you back for another Yellowjackets pod. But if we don't, until next time, a licky boom boom down.